Hello and welcome to our very first episode of Courtside Fracas. My name is Mariah, also Mugga, also on the main pod from time to time. I'm going to go around and introduce all the guys here. Welcome to the team. I'll start with our newbies. Nee, how you doing? Tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into basketball, who you support.
I got into basketball around 6 years ago when I started following Golden State Warriors. So my friends would talk to me about basketball, a guy I used to work with, and he introduced me to Golden State and to Steph Curry, most importantly. And I wasn't really feeling it too much to begin with. Then I started watching clips of him. I watch a couple of games late at night when I get back from work at uni. And I just started to fall in love with Curry. I liked how exciting he was. I liked the whole energy around the stadium. I liked the way they play. It was fast. It was unique to me because before I used to look at basketball, it looked a bit slow, a bit sluggish. But I like the way they play. And I mean, it's disputed over whether I've been supporting Golden State the whole time. But for me, I've only ever supported one team, and that's the Warriors, and that's Golden State. That's Stephen Curry, best shooter ever. Man, and that's me. So I've been watching the game for about 6 years, and I'm still growing into the game and getting to learn new stuff every day.
Lovely. Obi, how you doing? Tell us also a bit about yourself,
sir. I support the New York Knicks, unfortunately. I probably got into basketball must be 4 years ago, I guess, after the 2016 finals when the Cavs came from 3-1 down to beat Golden State. The reason being that obviously people were bantering me mainly about that loss, and obviously I wanted to be involved in the bants in it, so I thought let me get into basketball so I can share in, with the talk and stuff. I support the Knicks because I went to New York in 2016. I saw a friendly game there. Went to Madison Square Garden. It was pretty cool. So I thought, yeah, this is a good team. Obviously, I didn't know what they were like at the time. And I support Arsenal as well. So there was a YouTube video of the Knicks visiting London, and Carmelo Anthony said that he supported Arsenal. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just support the Knicks then. Turns out that was a horrible decision. So here we are.
Compounded by two teams who were quite stressful as well there.
Yeah, man. Hey, my life's not easy.
Certain man are lifting the cup. We won't talk about that too much, yes.
True.
So,
they're lifting cups and they could, enjoy Thursdays. Great night.
We digress. To introduce you to two of our vets today. Harold, how are you doing? Tell us a bit about your basketball story, sir.
Yes. Yeah, not too bad. Like you, Mariah, I'm on, fortunately, frequently with Touchline Fracas, part of the Cop End lot. Liverpool fan. Basketball-wise, I got into basketball, not too dissimilar to Nee's story. I started seeing a guy called LeBron James, the man behind me. He was doing great things. I think it's what really attracted me to LeBron. I sound like he's my wife or something. What attracted me to LeBron and just him as a player was how good he was, first and foremost, and how he was off the court. He was very exuberant, showed a lot of personality. It's very different to what I'd grown up seeing my football players. They're very subdued, there's underlying issues as to why that is. But it was just nice to see a man who I can look up to and be like, hey, this guy's sick. Off the court as well. I appreciate him. But anyway, on the court itself, he hasn't been the best. He hasn't been around the best talent. I'm going to stick with that, yes, shameless. In the finals, unfortunately, hence his record. But no, that's pretty much my story. It was about 4 years ago I got into it, and I haven't looked back since. Been learning more and more every day. Nee keeps me on my toes. So does Obi in our group chat that we had from years ago. So yeah, just learning like everyone else. And yeah, excited to bring on that chip this year.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, what's going on, man? Similar to Harold, been part of the Touchline Media Group for a little while now. Loving putting together these pods for people to just learn, enjoy, and get into the football. Want to do the same now for basketball. Offer my passion for it. So used to hosting the Jesse Hour pod, the Chelsea one. Happy that you're now looking like you're hosting this one, Maria, because it's a tough job. So cheers, mate.
We'll be sharing the duties. Don't you worry.
All right then. Bit of two-man game, bit of pick and roll. Okay. So I'm a big Boston Celtics fan. As you can see by the 1, 2, 3, it's about 17 banners behind me on the Zoom call there. Most successful
That's
franchise
tough.
in NBA history.
Mainly in the 60s.
Yeah, you know.
Well, you know, like a bit rich coming from a Liverpool fan talking about historical success, but that's all right. Anyway, it's a fantastic franchise. As I said to you lot, players move, even in American sports, franchises move, but I'm gonna stay Irish, so a bit of an easy one to just latch onto there. First sort of got into basketball initially, really just I saw a few players similar to a lot of people. Really enjoyed clips of Rajon Rondo towards his later time of the Celtics, just after the first championship win. Took a little backseat, came back. It was a new guy who was about 1 foot shorter, and Isaiah Thomas playing for this team that I liked. But again, loved him, loved the energy of that team around them, in terms of it being a really hard-working team with some magic sprinkled into it. I had a few mates who tried to get me into basketball for years and years and years, and I wasn't taking as much as they'd like me to. But it's been a bit of a boom for the last 4 years, where I've just become a bit of an obsessive, and if I'm honest, it's taken over football in my daily watching, to be honest. But yeah, just really looking forward to this, and yeah, man, just bringing the game, which I think is, when you get into it, something you can really love to a new audience of all the touchline listeners.
Lovely. And I guess I'll go. I don't support anybody. That may be funny to some of you, but I just enjoy the sport so much. My earliest memories probably go back to the mid-late 90s. So you're talking about the last few years of the Bulls, a washed Scottie Pippen on the Portland Trail Blazers, and Dennis Rodman doing his thing for the Los Angeles Lakers. And my interest has just kind of stayed since then, really. And obviously with the internet, it made the world a lot smaller. So I remember back when Bleacher Report was just a bunch of PowerPoint presentations listing the top 10 point guards of all time. I'd be there typing away about why Kobe Bryant's a better player than Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. I've come some way since then. Not sure if I still agree with that shout. We'll probably get into that over time. I tend to just enjoy the sport for the players. There's some players that I root for a lot. I'm a big Chris Paul fan. Obviously, LeBron James I'm a fan of, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. Yeah, there's a lot of players in this league who make it a pleasure to watch. The skill development. And I guess what has always kind of shown to me about basketball is the commentary, and it's probably part of the reason why we started Touchline in the first place, was seeing people like yourself giving that more nuanced analysis of the game. People who played it, but they didn't play it and it wasn't dated. They played it and they related to the players, and they were able to give better insight into the sport. And it wasn't crude, it was exciting. I watched shows. I remember watching shows with Gary Payton, Chris Webber, and Ahmad Rashad, and I'll probably post them on our Twitter account, which is @Courtside Fracas. So for those of you who are listening for the first time, give us a follow, interact. We'll all be on there talking basketball, and obviously for those of you who are part of the Discord channel, also join the NBA space, which is already popping, to be honest, and it's only going to continue to pop now that the NBA is back. This first episode is just serving us our chance to introduce ourselves and just to quickly go through the 22 teams that are in the bubble and just give some of our thoughts. So Yas and Harold do have us on a strict timer of a minute, which I suggested, but listen, ideas are there for the taking, aren't they? So we're going to try and get through these 22 teams as quickly as possible, given our thoughts.
22 minutes to go.
Yeah, given our thoughts in between. I'll kick off proceedings because I got the short straw, I guess, or the long straw, should I say, with the league leading Milwaukee Bucks. They're 52-12 this season. No, sorry, that's 53-12. Yes, courtesy of your Boston Celtics. That was
these bubble games are a bit of a warm up, but yeah, crack on.
Sure. It's a 119-112 win a couple of nights ago. They have got the stingiest defense in the league, pretty clear over the number 2 team, and their offense is number 4 in the league. So statistically, they're having a historic season, which really only compares to about 4 or 5 other teams who all went on to win the title. There's a lot of pressure. The man with all the pressure, who thinks he has the crown now, is a certain Giannis Antetokounmpo, the reigning MVP. And if you ask around, most people's pick for the MVP this season as well. He's averaging around 30 minutes a game, but he's managing to put in numbers about 30 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. And I say about because I've just rounded up just a little bit. So he's coming in as the best player in the league currently for me. And last year, they came off a heartbreaking loss to the Toronto Raptors, Kawhi Leonard's Toronto Raptors, that is. And I guess the question for them is they need to take the next step. They need Eric Bledsoe to actually play like a player who's earning the big bucks and defend that perimeter, but also make some shots when you get played to open threes. They've got Chris Middleton, 2-time All-Star, who's coming very close to the 50-40-90 club. The 50-40-90 club, some of you won't know what that means, but we'll put together a pod just explaining some of the basketball terms that we're using. They've also got Brook Lopez holding down the post with stellar defense, and they've got bench players such as Dante DiVincenzo, veteran Wesley Matthews, and George Hill. The Bucks, for me, are probably not the favourites, but regardless, they're going to be a tough out, and I expect them to get to the finals this season.
Cool. So I'm going to start with the LA Clippers, who I tipped to win the championship at the start of this year. That was following their blockbuster trade for Paul George and reigning finals MVP Kawhi Leonard. They currently sit second in the West, just in front of the Denver Nuggets and Utah Jazz. I think it'd be fair to say the Clippers haven't really lived up to expectations this year. And they're second in the West, but they're quite a few games back from the Lakers, and they haven't really blown teams away like we expected them to following the trade in the summer. There's a few reasons for that. Paul George has had an injury this year that's really bothered him in his shooting form. Kawhi sits out when he wants to, it seems. I'm not really too sure what the problem is there. And for these reasons, it's left doubts in the mind of a few people and pundits who now tip the Lakers and the Bucks to win the championship this year. But an interesting fact that I think when they've had a fit roster this year, maybe 11 times this year they've had a fit roster, they've gone 10-1 this season. So it's a good indicator to show that they definitely got the potential to blow teams away when fully fit. Quite a crazy stat, really. They've named 30 different starting fives this year, which is ridiculous considering we've only played like 65 games this year. This has led to issues with chemistry between the teammates, which I think is their greatest weakness at the moment. But a testament to their depth, their top 5 in offense and defensive ratings this year, which is quite remarkable considering the injuries and the different starting fives they've had this year. But for me, Kawhi is their standout player. And they got a number 2 in Paul George, who seems to be finding form just at the right time. And they got probably the best supporting cast in the league by far, in Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, amongst others. But for me, it's difficult to win the championship when your roster isn't fully fit or they're not in sync properly. And I think they're going to have to work on their chemistry, and players are going to have to know their roles. So I think the Clippers, they've got a bit of work to do. But for me, I find it really difficult to see anyone beating them in a 7-game series.
Cool. So staying in Los Angeles, let's get out of the basement a little bit. Let's go into the rafters where the LA Lakers are. Okay, cool. So their gamble last summer to trade their young core for a prime Anthony Davis is currently proving to be a good one. And as Mariah said, only the Milwaukee Bucks have a better record so far in the NBA. The Lakers are the bookies' favourite to win the entire championship, but with Avery Bradley withdrawing for personal reasons and Rajon Rondo, out with a hand injury for what is around 2 to 4 weeks at least, perhaps it won't be as plain sailing as Vegas suggests. Now, playing in his 17th season and averaging 26, 8, 11 in points, rebounds, and assists, I'm talking about the one and only LeBron James. He will enter his 13th postseason looking to better his 3-6 finals record. He's also fresh off an excellent clutch game where he took over, as you saw, his Lakers defeat their City Rifles, as Nee just said, and tied the regular season games as 2-2. My own thoughts on the Lakers' chances is that of Vegas. Contrary to Nee, they are my favourites to win.
Pivoting now from the West to the East, we'll sort of stay on that classic rivalry in the NBA and go to my Boston Celtics. We are chasing our 18th banner. this year, and there's some degree of contention, but we're still finding our feet a little bit after a bit of a headache last year where we had all this talent but no chemistry to go with it, and it was just a pretty poor year, all things considered. This year we've got maybe the starting 6 with the best all-round quality in the league. I think we've got a lot of 8 out of 10 guys in Tatum, Hayward, Brown, Smart, Kemba, even Daniel Tyson's had a really good year, but we lack that star power, I think, that the Clippers have, that the Lakers have, that the Bucks have, of someone who can really take over a game. Where we're looking for that is Jason Tatum, who really struggled in his first game in the bubble, like really struggled, and Kemba Walker, who's not really playoff proven yet at all, having only joined from Charlotte this offseason. So yeah, there are key issues really in that whether Kemba and Tatum can step up, and our bench, we haven't got the depth of a Clippers or even a Bucks really to come on and get some boards and get some points. We are 6th in offensive rating and 4th in defensive rating, with a net overall rating over the season in the NBA as 5th. So we are a strong team, but maybe a bit greater than the sum of its parts at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see how we deal with all the 1v1s in the playoffs.
Okay, next we've got the OKC, who are currently 5th in the West with a 41-24 record. I would say that they're probably one of the surprise teams this season due to the fact that they traded away their star, Russell Westbrook, for Chris Paul and a load of draft picks. I say in terms of position, it hasn't really moved the needle for them that much, which is good because obviously they haven't changed positions, but now they've also got a load of draft picks to look forward to in future seasons. They're currently being led by Chris Paul, who's having an all-star season. He averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds and 6 assists. And they've had a breakout year from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's averaging 19 points, 6 rebounds and 3 assists. They've got a strong supporting cast. They've got Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, Danilo Gallinari, Andre Roberson. So it's a really compact squad. In terms of the scrimmage, they were 3-0. I think one of the only teams to go 3-0 in the scrimmages. And they won their last game the first game in the NBA bubble over the Jazz, 110-94. So they're in strong form going into the season. If I had to guess in terms of prediction-wise, I think they'll probably stay around the 5th seed, 6th seed, maybe make it past the first round, and then probably get knocked out in the second round. But I think that's not really too bad for this team because obviously, like I said earlier, they've got their draft picks. Hopefully they can draft someone good. They've got Chris Paul, a veteran, leading them, which a lot of people probably might not have expected him to do because obviously he's been hampered by injuries last few years. People talk a lot about him not getting a ring, which I suppose he probably won't get in OKC. But maybe this will help to increase his legacy somewhat.
Cool. That's great, Obi, because I told you to mention Chris Paul some more.
I tried.
Yeah, you did your thing, man. I think just to piggyback on that point, I think he has a certain reputation as a bad teammate, and I think what he's done at OKC is probably helping to change the narrative somewhat. But I think now people are potentially going a bit overboard with it. So it's almost like because he had such a bad reputation early in his career, and people are so surprised that he'd been able to band this team of outcasts together to be a good team. People are Chris Paul. I think the only issue for Chris Paul is probably that he's always wanted to win too much, and he's wanted to win so much that he's been willing to cross whatever line is necessary to get the win, and was tried some nasty antics over the years. So he's probably one of my favorite players, and it really pains me that he never managed to not even win a ring. He just hasn't even played the NBA Finals, and probably his best chance was, is it 2017 or 2018? When I think 17 was when the 27 missed threes in Game 7 for the Houston Rockets. I mean, if you slot Chris Paul into, and they lost by 10 points, I think 9-10 points. You slot Chris Paul into that team. He had a fantastic year that year. They're beaten. I think they had Golden State's number that year. I think they would have made the finals, but all players have ifs and buts. So yeah, man, it is what it is.
Just a quick one to all of you. I think the one thing I want to speak about firstly is just the level of randomness and the variance that seems to be here in this bubble and might be here. Like for those who are listening who maybe haven't been keeping up with the NBA and this, that, and the other, and why this particular postseason or leading to it is so different is, as with every sport, the NBA's had to reckon with COVID-19 and with the issues of lockdown, etc. And for those who are really new to the NBA, this is going to sound ridiculous, but they basically have uprooted every player, every coach, most big journalists, and sent them all to Disney World. This sounds like I'm making it up now when I say it out loud. Sent them all to Disney World in Florida in a bubble with fishing rivers and makeshift courts and hotels and places and everything like that.
They were building a barbershop. Like, there's fully a little city inside Disneyland.
Like, I mean, we can't spend all the time that we need to on the bubble, but anyone listening, just go and type NBA bubble details into Google. It's insane what they've done, and it's a credit they've even got this season back on the road, to be fair. But I think
bless America, boy.
I won't go that far. You'll catch me kneeling any time. But but yeah, I just find it a bit odd. Like things like playoffs and things like refereeing without the fans, things like comebacks, even like New Orleans Pelicans were 30 down in the first half against the Clippers last night, and you just knew without a home crowd or anything like that, it seemed very much yeah, that's cool. So it's an interesting one. Do you guys think with this bubble environment and all the randomness that might come from that and potential injuries and illness and everything, do you think we could get a real dark horse as a champion, as a final appearance, or do you just think quality will even out?
I actually think we might get. I think the quality will show, no doubt. I think we saw that same thing in football, isn't it? When there's no fans, all those people that are on the passion and the art. Yeah, you can't really rely on that. Same logic applies in basketball. But I think as far as an outsider goes, I really like the look of the Raptors. They're a very well-rounded team. I think if there's any team to cause an upset, I reckon I'll put my money on the Raptors. If there's any team to be an underdog, a dark horse to come through the East, I just can't see anything other than the LA teams in the West. But in the East, I think there's definitely more up for the taking there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, they know how to play.
How have you found the experience of the games as well? Like just in terms of watching them.
Oh, okay.
The most annoying thing is the squeaky trainers, man. Oh God, that squeak. But otherwise, it's kind of like with football, we've just adjusted. Just adjusted to it, and you
bad, to be honest.
Yeah, you normalise.
It would be nice
for the crowd sounds.
Yeah, it would be nice. I'm about to say it would be nice for some crowd noise.
I swear they have put some in. No?
They have.
They got their 2K noise, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's just about does the job.
Yeah.
But I think the NBA has done a good job of it. But yeah,
they've done a great job, man. You got to commend them on that.
And I think that that's definitely credit to Adam Silver. He's a fantastic commissioner.
Yeah, he actually is. I like him.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, it had to happen. There's too much money at stake.
Yeah.
I know
what you mean.
But I'm here for it, and it's kind of happened at the perfect time. Football's finished now, so we've kind of dealt with that, and it's now we've got NBA to take over. So it's like constant entertainment, man. I feel like I've been watching a sport I enjoy every day for the last month and a bit, to be honest with you. Yeah, cool. So with that, let's go on to our second batch of teams. So kick us off, Wizards.
Yeah, so I have the pleasure to give you guys some fantastic news on the Washington Wizards. Yes, the John Wall-less Washington Wizards. Okay.
And the Bradley Beal-less, no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
To my surprise, yes, the Bradley Beal.
You can see how much effort Harold's put into
it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Before you start, Harold, again, like, for those not listening, we're getting these teams out of the way. Just a quick one. The next little round, we're getting some of these out of the way. And the NBA only invited 22 out of the 30 because
should only invite
Kobe's 10, Knicks and 7 others.
Stretch. I know it's been a stretch.
Weren't even worth bringing in. But there are still teams in this bubble, one or two, who you think, did they really need to come? And the Wizards are one of these 2 or 3 teams.
My goodness. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about all the others as well. Yeah.
It's funny. You said about Bradley Beal. I'm still gonna include him in my segment on the Wizards because I find no one else worth mentioning. Okay, cool. So
Bertans isn't around.
Davis Bertans, yeah. Bertans.
My goodness, no way. Okay.
What do you mean he's a shooter?
Okay, let me speak. Let me speak. The Wizards, as Yaz was saying, are the last of the teams in the East to be invited to the bubble. For the reason why, honestly, I couldn't tell you. They have a 24-40 record. In fact, it's 24-41. I think they lost again to the other day.
Yeah, they did.
It's, yeah, 24-41 record this season. But despite that, they have a lot owed to their star guard, Bradley Beal, who's actually not here, funny enough. He has stepped up in the absence of co-star John Wall, who's been out injured for the season. As per The Athletic, John Wall will actually remain out and we won't join up with the Wizards, as you probably already know by now, as he preps his return for the 2021 season. So Beal, who is only second only to James Harden, is a massive blow not to be there in points average this season. He's had a phenomenal year where he's put up a career high 55 points and an unfortunate loss to the Bucks in overtime. Beal shines and the Wizards fall short, somewhat indicative on their year so far. After falling short against the lowest seed in the bubble without their star man Bradley Beal, oh my goodness, the Wizards are 6 games behind the Nets in the East. And with
Harold, I'm surprised you're nearly finishing your 60 seconds with these, man.
Yeah, honestly, this is my last sentence. They got 6 games behind. There's 7 games left.
That's what I've got in mind.
They'd
have to win every game, and the Nets would have to drop every single game. I can't believe this.
It's absolute madness. And then I even went on to say, I think the gap will be too large to overcome. Yeah, I think it might.
Just about, mate.
There's a hot take there, Harold. Hot take.
Yeah. Hot take, Harold. Hot take, Harold.
Oh man.
Next we got the Orlando Magic, who I won't spend too much time on. They're 7th in the East at the minute with a 31-35 record. They're an average team. They've been led by Evan Fournier, who's averaging 18, 2 and 3, and Nikola Vucevic, who's averaging 19, 11 and 3.
Wait, hold on. Nah, keep going. Don't. Never mind. Just get through it. Just get through it. I was going to ask you a question about the Wizards, but just about the Magic. But just get through it. Sorry.
I did through it. So their last game, they won 128-118 over the Nets, but I wouldn't put any stock in it because the Nets team is like non-existent. It's a B team. My prediction, they'll probably make the playoffs, I guess, but they're set to come up against the Raptors as it stands. So that's an easy first round exit for them. So that's all I got really.
All right, so next we're going to go to the Phoenix Suns, another exciting team to go through. They're led by All-Star Devin Booker. He's probably one of the best scorers in the league.
Yeah.
The expectations were set low before the season for obvious reasons, but they actually made a pretty decent start this year. They're sitting comfortably above the 500 mark until their starting center DeAndre Ayton got suspended for 25 games, and then from there they just start to plateau and they start to slowly lose momentum. And now they find themselves 13th in the West with literally no chance of making the playoffs. There's not a great deal to add to them, to be honest. I feel they're just here to make up the numbers so that it's balanced. But to be fair, I've enjoyed watching the games this season. He hasn't been too bad. I feel it might be a different conversation had Ayton not been suspended, but he was, so here we are. The addition of Kelly Oubre this year in the summer was a pretty decent addition. He plays both ends of the floor pretty well, and he's improved offensively a lot and become a much more consistent scorer now. But when you factor in the re-emergence of Golden State next year, who are going to come back with a vengeance, and then you've got the Pelicans, who are probably going to be healthy, hopefully, I don't really see how they're going to make the playoffs next year in a stacked West. So I'm not really too sure what the Suns' aim here is. They're a bit in limbo. So I think they either need to get some players to support Booker, or they need to look at trading him away and starting again. But yeah, there's not much to add to this team.
Fair enough. So from one fantastic team to another, it brings me great pleasure to give you the guys who are 22nd and 23rd respectively in assists per games and points per games, and conceding the NBA average of 111 points per game. They're wonderful, dubbed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Sacramento Kings. Okay, cool. It's clear to see that their problems are on the offensive end. They fell short to the Spurs on Friday night in a game that we all watched. All watched, yes. As Mariah falls asleep, as I continue to wax lyrical about about the wonderful Sacramento Kings. The 5th pick in the 2017 NBA draft, De'Aaron Fox is the only player in the team to score more than 20 points per game, with Buddy Hield falling just short, under 20. The former shot very well from the field against Spurs, managed to post up 39 points. The latter, however, Buddy Hield had a contrasting game, only shooting 6 points in 20 minutes and shooting a woeful 15% from the field. Despite Fox's best efforts, the Kings' lack of a high-scoring star player puts a serious doubt to their playoff hopes. And with Portland and Memphis a better and more established team this season, I can't see the Kings overcoming one of them, let alone both.
Thank you, Hot Take Harold. I'll take over from there.
I don't like these nicknames.
It's stuck now. It's been said 3 times, so it's stuck.
That's it.
The 30 and 35 Brooklyn Nets. They've got the 24th ranked defense in the league. On the bright side, they've got the 9th ranked offense, so that they can score. But unfortunately, their scorers aren't here. No KD, no Kyrie, and no Spencer Dinwiddie. They decided to come back to the bubble and proceed to lose. Luckily for them, as has already been mentioned, the Wizards are so far behind them that they're going to make the playoffs just by de facto. They'll have the Bucks waiting for them. Basically at this point, I just want to see Jamal Crawford get some minutes. He didn't get any the other night. Just want to see Jamal Crawford get some minutes, put up some buckets, concede even more going the other way. But yeah, I'm just here for a good time. And yeah, I didn't even use my 60 seconds because it's the Nets, man.
Right. Now, do you know what? I have good news for any listeners who are still awake with us. We've just gone through the 5 teams who, from my very professional opinion, you don't really have to worry about. But from now, we're starting. Every team we mention from now is at the very least interesting, at the very least. So the scrubs are out. Brilliant. San Antonio Spurs. Okay. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one in that they won their first NBA title back in '99 after a lockout season, which was to do with pay and striking and owners v players and all sorts. And they're looking at, since then, the first time in 21 years missing the playoffs in the lockdown season. So it's a full circle for the San Antonio Spurs. This is Greg Popovich's dynasty. They've epitomized alternative thinking.
Tim Duncan's.
What's that?
Tim Duncan's.
And Tim Duncan. Yeah, Tim Duncan played a part. I don't think Tim Duncan's actually on the bench in this bubble, unfortunately. But yeah, the Spurs. Listen, they don't have a huge. They didn't have a huge amount to play for coming in. But when you actually look at the standings, they could yet sneak into these playoffs in this play-in tournament, which we'll touch on later on. They got a win against the Kings in this bubble, and it's an awkward thing for them where they might have to start rebuilding again. LaMarcus Aldridge is out, not here. Their real go-to big man with a shoulder injury. DeMar DeRozan, who's never been the perfect fit there, he can opt out this summer. And seeing as he took a bit of a back seat in the game from what I watched against the Kings, it seems like they are maybe focusing on some good young players like DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and Jacob Poeltl to sort of take over a little bit. And they've got some interesting players, so they're definitely worth a watch. I will give them that. And you never know, they have the Grizzlies next, and if they get a result there, them, Portland, and the Grizzlies could prove a really interesting little side plot of who gets that 8th seed in the West. So worth watching. Their defensive rating is 24th in the league. So they're really going to need to tighten that up or go mad on the offense. So, yeah.
Cool.
It's me again. Pivoting over to a surprise package in how confusing they have been this year is the Philadelphia 76ers over in the East. These were my tip to get out of the East before the season. I expected them to reach the finals because their signing of Horford in free agency just gave them a monster defense. Horford, Embiid, Simmons is just the sort of stuff you see and wonder how you can score against them. A minimum of 2 Giannis stoppers. Fresh off a heartbreak in the playoffs last year where they only bounced away from a Kawhi Leonard shot, and they run that Toronto championship team really, really close. But this season's just been a mess. They have looked so off it at times. They are 18th in offensive rating for the season, owing to just their big lumbering size and not really being able to create any space. A lot of players who want to do the same thing. They might have mitigated that, I thought, by putting Ben Simmons, the unshootable Ben Simmons, to power forward, playing as a bit of a creator up there, but then somehow let TJ Warren smash them for 53 points last night of the Indiana Pacers. So the mess and the confusion continues for the Sixers. The key issue is just fit across the floor. If they can find something that works, they're going to be an absolute monster to play, but they're running out of time to find something that's really, really slick. But I will say defensive rating of 6th in the league, and I think in a playoff matchup where you have all this time over 7 games, I think they're going to be really, really hard to score on.
Cool. Next up is the defending champions, the Toronto Raptors. They've got a 47-18 record this season. They've just come off a 107-192 win against Harold's Los Angeles Lakers. I guess going in, the question for the Raptors was how were they going to do without Kawhi Leonard, their finals MVP, who jetted over to the Clippers. And I think the question is that, well, the question was that, but the answer is that they've passed the test with flying colours. They just know how to play winning basketball. They're led by their coach, who won the title in his first season as the head coach, Nick Nurse, who comes to us courtesy of the British Basketball League, believe it or not. So he earned his stripes playing the long game. Fantastic X and O's guy, very steady hand steering the ship. They've got the second best defense in the league behind the Bucks, and they've got a middling offense. And I think it's on that end of the floor where they'll need to figure out how they're going to score in a 7-game slower series in the playoffs. But listen, they've got Pascal Siakam, whose improvement is unlike any other player I can really compare to. I think he started playing basketball in his mid-teens. He wanted to be a priest, I believe. But he started playing basketball in his mid-teens, made his first all-star team this year, and he's the current most improved player and is probably one of the front runners to win it again. He's backed up by Fred VanVleet, who just gets buckets, man. Gets buckets, plays hard defense, and is basically going to get paid this summer. Love a bit of Fred VanVleet. In between arguing about scarves, you've got Serge Ibaka and OG Anunoby, who was, 89% from the field last night against the Los Angeles Lakers. And then leading the ship, Raptors legend, always happy to take a charge, Kyle Lowry. So, yeah, listen, the Raptors know how to play. They've even got Marc Gasol in the cut. They've got good, wiry defenders who can guard people like your Giannis Antetokounmpos, your Tatums, your Ben Simmonses. They've also got strong presence in the paint with Ibaka and Gasol. They're going to be a tough out. Like Harold mentioned earlier, if there's any team to sneak in and probably make the finals who you wouldn't suspect, it would be the Raptors. I'm just enjoying watching the show, to be honest.
Yeah, likewise. So from one surprising package to another, that is the Denver Nuggets. The robust and to some, the surprising package of Denver are sitting comfortably in 3rd in the West and are making a push to 2nd with a lot owed to their superb home record. So star player Nikola Jokic seems to conquer each trial put before him, averaging 20 points, 10 rebounds and 7 assists a game, where in a recent scrimmage game, he was seen playing point guard and throwing dimes up to the 7'2" Bobo, showing us once again he's far from the standard big man. Despite their brilliant home form and the effective basketball they've played this season, the most likely opponents in the semi-finals will be the Clippers, who in my opinion would simply hold too much quality and playoff experience to allow the Nuggets to go any further.
All right, so next are the Houston Rockets, who I'm not really surprised, to be honest. They've been quite a consistent playoff team for the last 5-6 years. They're led by superstar James Harden, who is probably the most polarizing player in the league, period. A lot of people call his stretching of the rules and manipulation. Some call it clever. I definitely fall into the latter. I think it's clever. I think he's definitely the best scorer in the league now. And I think it's arguable if he's the best scorer in the NBA, period. So the Rockets currently sit 6th in the Western Conference. They're ready to call their playoff status already. Before the season, I didn't really rate them as contenders, but that's mainly due to the 2 LA teams being so strong. I'm having LeBron and AD and Kawhi and PG. I didn't think the trade they made for Westbrook in the summer really fit their system. So to talk about their system a little bit, Coach D'Antoni, his system is very much live by the three and die by the three. They don't make the threes, they're probably not going to win the game, as you saw against the Golden State some years back when they shot 27 threes and they missed 27 consecutively. It took them out of the game. So just talking that trade between CP3 and Westbrook, it wasn't really working at the beginning of the season. The chemistry wasn't really there, and Westbrook was just jacking up threes. He was struggling to get to the paint because it was crowded because of Capella. But now that he's been traded, I think Westbrook has probably been the Rockets' best player this year, or since the trade anyway. There's a crazy stat here from ESPN. He averages 20.1 points in the paint, converting at 63%, which is insane for a guard. Exactly.
A 6'3" guard as well.
Exactly, a 6'3" guard. He's a freak. He's an absolute menace athletically. So my chances, well, I think the Rockets' chances, it's a bit of a weird one. I'm not really too sure which way it's going to go. I think they've adapted the most extreme form of small ball ever in the NBA. I can get into that later, what that means. Their starting center now is 6'5" guard PJ Tucker, which is just, it's never been seen before. Their chances of winning the chip, it's just awkward. For the Lakers, I think they'd be in a really awkward matchup, like they've shown in recent games. But to be honest, I think it kind of hinges on whether CP3, whether Westbrook and Harden can show up in the postseason and just deliver for once properly. So yeah.
Cool. Next, we've got the Dallas Mavericks, who are currently 7th in the West with a 40-28 record. They're led by Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Doncic is in his second year in the NBA. He's averaging 28, 9, and 8, which is ridiculous. He's probably one of the best players in the league right now and probably one of the future faces of the NBA. Then you've got Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn, who they traded from New York for Dennis Smith Jr. and a bit of change. He's just...
That's gotta hurt. That's gotta hurt.
Honestly. I'm fuming. I'm still fuming.
Sorry, we digress.
Yeah, let me get it out before otherwise I cry. He's currently averaging 19 points and 9 rebounds. They've got an okay supporting cast. They've got Tim Hardaway Jr. and Seth Curry and a few others. Their last game, they lost 149-153 to the Houston Rockets in overtime. I think with Porzingis and Doncic, they're two of the brightest duos in the league. I think with them, literally anything can happen. I've got to stay here. Apparently, they are first in offensive rating in the NBA, but then they're 17th in defense. So that's the thing. I think they're that leads to their semi-decent record, obviously in the West, just given the 7th seed. I think in the playoffs they probably will finish around the 7th spot. I think that would have them facing the Clippers, who I think, as Nee said earlier, I can't see anyone beating the Clippers 4 times. So I think it'll be a first-round exit for them. But the future's bright, so watch this space for that team.
Absolutely. Yeah. And before I get on to the Miami Heat, I just realized that Harold, supposed friend of Obi, is the one who allocated the Knicks fan, the team that his former unicorn star talisman has now been traded to. That's a bad mind move.
Bad mind. You know what?
That's like your bad vibes. Hot take, bad vibes, Harold, and hot take, Harold.
Oh, the worst thing. I was originally allocating the teams, and I was going to do it quite randomly. And hot take Harold said, "No, I got this. I know the boys. I know them well. I got this."
Giving Obi the Mavs is a hot take, man. For real.
Yeah, sorry, Obs. Moving swiftly on to the Miami. We've used the word surprise package, the Miami Heat. We've used the word surprise package a couple times. If there was a most improved team award, I'd almost be tempted to give it to these guys. I think they had a couple down years, couple dead years. Last year was more about Dwayne Wade touring stadiums and giving his shirt to people than anything else. But they've been so fun to watch this year. It's been mad. Eric Spoelstra, longtime coach, seems to have found a real leader in the group in Jimmy Butler, who they acquired in the offseason, who can really drive the team forward. Obviously, his personality is well documented, and he's not been the best fit at certain places. Hasn't really found a home since Chicago, but he's really embraced Miami this year, and he's led quite a young group. And again, the word misfit's been used. You got people like Kelly Olynyk smashing the season. You got Jimmy Butler there, getting to the foul line, being a primary ball handler, really, really driving the team. You got two of the best rookies that have been drafted this year in Tyler Hero and Kendrick Nunn, who've both been so good to watch. They're one of the hottest shooting teams in the NBA. They've got Duncan Robinson smashing it, Dragic off the bench. They've got Bam Adebayo even.
I was waiting for you to mention
been
my
nuts.
Nigeria brother.
Crazy.
I was
Bam,
waiting.
even finding a little mid-range game now, Bam, like he is a real player. And again, such a young player. Like you don't think it's of how mature he plays and how dependable he is. The Heat are a lot of fun, man. I guess the only issue for them is whether the shooting is sustainable. It was against the Nuggets last night again, like smashed it again, but that's the only thing. Their offensive rating now after last night is 4th in the NBA. So they could really catch fire in the playoffs and surprise some people. But yeah, defensive middling. But bags of fun, honestly. Like the Heat, if anyone's listening and is looking for a little dark horse to follow and watch, I'd say go and watch the Heat. Bags of fun. And that kind of concludes where we've been with the teams now that aren't maybe favourites at this point, but could really, really do stuff in the playoffs. I think the Heat, the Nuggets, Toronto, Philadelphia, Houston, and even the Mavericks, like, okay, they're not the Clippers, but they're not the Lakers, they're not the Bucks, but no one wants to play these teams in the playoffs. They are all so dangerous in their own way.
They'll be a tough out. I think with the Sixers, they probably got the highest ceiling and the lowest floor of any team. And you literally don't know who you're going to see on
I have no idea.
night. And I think...
last night, I was like, right, cool. Sixers, first game in the bubble. Let's see it. They've all this time to work things out. Embiid might be healthy, probably. Who knows? And I watched it expecting to see something. And just, again, like, it's the same fit issue and people playing just in no recognizable scheme. And to be fair, we have got a Sixers fan as part of the podcast who's not here today. And I'm glad he wasn't here for 60 seconds on Teams, because if he had the Sixers, it would have been 60 minutes. And yeah, like, they are such a strange team to place that you couldn't rule them out still winning the whole thing. And you couldn't rule them out getting caught by...
Yeah, for sure.
Harold can. Hot take Harold can.
On the flip side, Harold, I could say that, but then I could also see them having to play Miami in the first round and getting done in 5. Like, they're so strange.
They're so funny.
On that point that you made earlier about like the home court advantage and whatnot, I think they've got like a really good home court record, but their away performance this year has been appalling. It's been so poor.
Bubble, are they at home or are they away? Every game.
It's basically away, isn't it? Because they're not at home.
But they haven't got the travel of away, but they haven't got the familiarity of home. It's weird.
Exactly, yeah.
So their performances are probably going to be middling,
Cancel it out.
Yeah. You know what? It was intriguing. You spoke on the small ball earlier of the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
It reminded me immediately. I don't know why. My mind went to Pep Guardiola playing. Will be a lot of football references because that's the best way we can relate to things. So it reminded me of when Pep played without a striker for the first time, and everyone was
the false nine. Yeah.
What on earth is going on? Like, and then suddenly it became a thing. And who knows? Who's to say that this small ball? I doubt it, because closer to you out to the rim, the easier. As we saw on Bowl show yesterday, you kept getting that many rebounds. But yeah, it's interesting to see how the dynamic plays out.
Well, this is the thing. I know we are gonna, in the podcast, it's been asked for by prospective listeners, that we are going to do a lot on tactics, a lot on terminology, a lot on trying to break the game down as simply as possible in future pods and in YouTube videos and in tweets and everything. But on the small ball point, I think the Rockets and the Sixers are the two opposite ends of the NBA in a way, in that the Sixers, everyone's moving after Golden State's sort of pace and space, move the ball, have Stephen Curry out 30 feet because he can shoot that far, so who the hell do you defend? The Sixers weirdly have just tried to go the other way. They've got 3 people who are amazing in the paint, and only now that Tobias Harris is maybe finding a bit of form, can they have any spacing whatsoever? And the Rockets have just said 6'5" is fine. Westbrook going to the rim can be our biggest threat. Robert Covington will be the best rim protector, even though he's been a wing for his whole career. So that's the other thing with the Sixers is like, whereas the Rockets are trying to push the envelope and be this modern sort of new sort of style, the Sixers are just going the complete opposite way. I think that would be an amazing hypothetical finals. I don't think it would ever happen, but I'd love to see that go 7 games to see where the NBA is really going to go. But Nee, if you could just touch on small ball without going too much into it, and why that sort of, especially as a Golden State guy, why that's taken over recently in the NBA, because like you said, people's image of the NBA is so much about dunks, rim, protecting, big guys in the paint, 7-footers.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this small ball thing taking off over the last 6 years like it has?
It's basically on the small ball. I mean, it kind of like started maybe with Golden State maybe like 5 years ago when they won the chip, or in their first one in 2015, 14. So basically, we had something called a death lineup, where we had Steph, we had Clay, we had Draymond, we had Iggy, and then we had the Australian geezer, Bogut. So Bogut was the center, and then we had 4 small players, like they were like 6'5" and under, who kind of played like guards. And the idea is that you space on the floor, so you got a lot of shooters around the perimeter, and that leaves the paint open for cuts. So basically, Curry will come to the court with the ball, and Draymond and Clay could either cut or they can come off a screen and then shoot a three. And yeah, so like they played really fast, and it's difficult when you have a lot of larger players to keep up with that. And like there's something that centers hate doing. They hate guarding the perimeter. So if he has someone like Rudy Gobert, he doesn't like coming out to the perimeter to guard, because it's difficult to guard the guard, of course. He can't keep up with his feet and the movements. And that's something that Golden State really looked to exploit. And that's why their form of basketball was so successful, because it was something new, it was fast, and not many teams could adapt to it. But to touch on what the Rockets are doing now, I feel like, because it's kind of like their last chance, basically. This is D'Antoni's last year. The GM, Daryl Morey, hasn't really been too hot on renewing his contract or really talking it up. So I feel like this is like they're kind of putting all their cards into one deck sort of thing. They've gone to the most extreme form of small ball ever, and they're just going to look to blow teams away with 3-pointers. I don't know if it's going to work, to be honest.
To extreme small ball. That's just Mike D'Antoni for you.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. Yeah,
because he did it with the Phoenix Suns back.
Back in 07 with Steve Nash.
Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire and that team over there. So this is how he's always kind of been an offensive genius and seen the game a completely different way. The thing about Golden State, though, that people don't have is what Steph has, which is, they call it gravity, because like you said, from 30 feet out, he can score. So he naturally attracts players towards him. And when he naturally attracts players towards him, that creates space for other players. And there's this thing we talk about when people make players better. Most of these NBA guys, when you put them in an empty gym, and I'm talking about even people like Dwight Howard, and you ask him to, stand in the mid-range and take like 50 mid-range jumpers, he's making 80, 90% of them. Like, these guys are all, in terms of skill level, they're all amazing basketball players. Obviously, then when you adjust to the quality of the players you're playing with, that's when and the pace of the game, that's when it gets more difficult. So they had Steph Curry, who's a unicorn player himself, who's kind of fathered the league, because since Steph, everybody's moved to this kind of pace and space way of playing. And it's nice to see teams like Philly and the Bucks to an extent, who even in the regular season, they are very much threes and frees. So basically it's all threes and layups, basically. Two-pointers from the mid-range don't make sense, because why are you going to take a more difficult shot when it gives you the same amount of points as having a layup? But not everyone can play like that. And I love the fact that Giannis isn't another guy who's out at the perimeter. He's a bit different. He does most of his work in the paint. So it's interesting to see the contrast in styles. And you see all the guys that Steph Curry's sons coming through the league who just come in shooting mad threes. And another point I wanted to touch on was Philly and Miami, and maybe want to hear what you guys think in terms of Philly getting rid of Jimmy Butler, because he had that culture clash over there where he's just And he had it also at the Timberwolves, where he just wants to win and he's serious about winning and he wants all his teammates to play hard. And they lost that when he left that Philly. And you've got Embiid, who 1 week is not fit and he's putting on weight and he's drinking Shirley Temples. And then you've got Ben Simmons, who's like, he's a very, very good player. Yeah, he's a very, very good player already to me. He's elite defensively, he's an elite playmaker. Obviously, we know about his shooting woes. But they've lost that figurehead, and then he's gone to the Heat. You have Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. They have a clear culture, a clear mantra of winning. LeBron James tried to, come in and be LeBron James and run the organization. And Pat Riley was kind of like, nope, Spoelstra's my guy. You either follow his lead or you go. And, he's probably never experienced that in his whole career. So what do you guys think about Philly letting Butler go and how that's obviously led to a great season for Miami and the seasons
I think if you were to go watch the playoffs again last year, I was quite surprised at how reliant they were on Butler in tight games. And then they had a tough choice there last year in that they really had space for one max contract, and it was between Tobias Harris or Jimmy Butler. And I think there was two reasons they didn't bank on Butler, one of which is the age. I think he's about 30 now, so a max contract for the amount of time. It's maybe not the wisest investment, but then for me, the other thing was like, Tobias Harris isn't a max player. He's a good player. He's not a max guy. So, but then the main reason was that culture clash. I think it was a very, very public falling out with Brett Brown, and I think Jimmy didn't like his role in the team. And again, it was Sixers all over. They had good players before deciding how they were going to use them. I think the strength that teams like the Rockets, the Warriors, even the Celtics under the earlier years in Brad Stevens, and what Frank Vogel's done at the Lakers with what little he has this year is, in basketball, there's a real mindset of, okay, they can play, but how do they fit? And how do they enable us to play through guy one and guy two, and what can they offer that no one else can offer? And I think the Sixers are the biggest evidence of just not thinking that way. You've got Ben Simmons, who's an amazing player in everything he can do, but he, as we know, we'll see what happens, but refuses / can't / needs to see a psychologist to shoot a three. And then you've got Embiid, who probably wants to shoot the three more than he's suited
should
for.
Be, yeah.
I hate that so much.
Dominate the paint.
You've got in Simmons.
You can't dominate the paint because Simmons is there, bruv.
Well, this is the thing. In Simmons and Embiid, you've got two players who do their best work right next to the rim. Then they decided to get one over the Celtics by signing Al Horford, who he's a solid three-point shooter if he has the room, but he's not who you need to stretch the floor. So again, post player under the rim, back to goal, if you will. Yeah, so I think the Sixers just are like, for someone that was so credited with the process. I'm sure there'll be stuff online about that for any new listeners, of tanking early on, getting the right guy in Embiid, building around him. That whole philosophy of really process-driven, smart recruitment is just in the mud. Like, I don't know what.
Yeah, they're killing it.
Yeah, I think Horford was probably the wrong move there. If you replace Horford with a good three-point shooter, that means teams have to,
everything.
Means teams have to honor that player, and it's either we give him space and he can kill us, and most times he will, or you let them kill you in the post between Embiid and Simmons. They're not in this situation. Horford is just one too many. Two's already too many bodies.
The thing is with Horford, and I can say this confidently from a Celtics perspective, I am telling you now, a big part of them getting Horford was because he was so good at defending Joel Embiid.
Weird.
And then he's gone there, and now the Philly record against us, the Celtics, has swapped around. We used to just have them up to the point where Joel Embiid said it's not a rivalry because they kick our ass every time. We used to have them up. Now they've got a 3-0 record, 3-1 record against us this year. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's so small. Like they paid a guy who's 34 years old. I think it was $27 million a year for 4 years. Just because of this one matchup, like bigger picture, boy.
The worst. That has to be the worst contract in the league.
They're too focused on Giannis as well, I think, because he does pretty well against Giannis Horford. So
Yeah,
that's why I think, that trade is not going to work. It just hasn't worked out so far.
You know what?
yeah.
I think out of big teams, so the bigger teams that we've been speaking on, it's worrying that they lack such identity. Like we're talking about the Heat and being the most improved, but fundamental to any sport, in any team success is an identity of how you play and a formula to show that it's working, right? But we even with Mike D'Antoni's extreme plays with the small ball, we saw that that's an identity he's gone for. He decided to trade Capella. He said, you know what, I'm going to take a punt, but everyone knows their role. It's
You can rate that.
ISO ball, it's freeze, it's Westbrook doing Westbrook does, drive into the paint. So it's like it's strange, and obviously you have the Clippers. You have these different teams who know everyone's roles. It seems as though in the Sixers, everyone just gets in each other's way. It's almost like, okay, the only time it looks smooth is when they dish it to Tobias Harris outside the paint, and then he smoothly switches a free. That's the only time it looks like there's some cohesion. Otherwise, it's bumpy. It's like it's not coherent. Like it's not smooth. It's strange to me that we can be saying this about a potential chip contender that we just don't know their structure in its entirety, if you know what I mean.
Bizarre.
So we're going to finish up now with our last 5 teams. And we'll start off with the Indiana Pacers.
Okay, last Pacers. They are the 5th seed in the East right now. They've got a 39-26 record. They have been led by Domantas Sabonis, who's had an all-star year, averaging 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. They've also got Malcolm Brogdon, who they got from the Bucks, who's averaging 16, 4, and 7. But he's been a bit injury hampered throughout the season, so he hasn't played as much as he could have. They've got Victor Oladipo, who has been injured for a while, but he's just coming back from injury, going into the bubble. So that should improve them a little bit. In the scrimmages, they won 2 and lost 1. Upon my research, one of the things that I was reading was that normally in the NBA, in the regular season, they were rated 24 in terms of pace, so the amount of time taken to get your shot off. And during the scrimmages, they were 6th in terms of pace. So that looks to be something that they're trying to improve, especially now. So I think Sabonis is injured. I'm not sure for how long, but I can imagine with him going out, you've got Oladipo coming in. They'll probably try to keep that trend going in terms of getting their shots off quicker. I believe
a stat for pace in the NBA, of course.
That's the thing as well. With any listener coming over from the football podcast, get your calculator out because the NBA has a number for everything.
Statistics. That's one. Actually, quickly, just a segue. One thing I hate about the NBA is the stats. Like this person was the first one to get 15 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals.
ESPN and Bleacher Report. Blame them,
God,
man.
like since 1994, and there's like they manipulate stats so.
It'll be the most bespoke stat. It'll be like,
my
the first person to get 5 rebounds in 14.5 seconds.
Yeah,
like,
it's nasty, man. It's nasty.
So annoying. Anyway, so I think they'll probably end up around 5th or 6th overall. I can see them. I think they'll match up against the Celtics if they finish 6th. So I think that's that'll be quite a good game to watch. But I can see the Celtics beating them probably 4-2 or something like that. But yeah, they're a good team, but I can't see them doing anything major, to be honest with you.
Cool. And to follow on, my last team, the Pelicans. They've probably been my favorite team to watch this year, but also the most frustrating to watch this year. But it's hard not to be excited by their young core of Zion, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo, who are the standouts. Prior to the season, I tipped them to finish in the playoffs. But an injury to Zion and a younger new team getting to know each other, the chemistry hasn't been there, and they had an awful start. I think they started the season 9-26, which is just not going to cut it in the West. So like from then on, they were always playing catch up, and it's always going to be a big task to get into the playoffs. But I'm having watched most of the games this year. There's quite a large portion of the games that they lost this year. Maybe in and around the 4th quarter, maybe because of the inexperience, they just couldn't close out the games, and that's been a theme even within the bubble, as you saw against the Jazz, where they had a double-digit lead in the 3rd quarter. Their sloppiness and inexperience, they just couldn't close out the game, and they lost a game. But I guess there's some good news in that since Zion's return, they've had a 19-13 record. They currently sit 12th in the West. They probably won't make the playoffs this year. I think it's beyond their reach now, especially yesterday after getting blown up by the Clippers. I think the Pelicans having a really exciting team though. They're really athletic. They're currently 5th in the NBA for fast break points. But however, as I said earlier, their sloppiness. I think they average the second most amount of turnovers in the league, and their free throw shooting is 29th in the league. And these are two elements of your game that just aren't going to cut it in the postseason. And you can't win a 7-game series if you can't shoot your free throws, and you can't stop turning over the ball. So these problems have continued to persist, and it's something they're going to have to work on. To talk on their best player, a lot of people will have Zion as their best player. He's tipped to be the face of the league once LeBron leaves. But for me personally, it's Brandon Ingram right now who's their best player.
Slim Reaper.
Would you say he's the most improved this season?
100%. He's improved in every offensive category.
Yeah. That's a good shout.
He's improved in every offensive category this year. He's really stepped up. I think he's averaging 23, 24 points a game.
24, I think.
Yeah, and 4 rebounds, 6 assists, something like that, all the way around. And he's a good defender as well. He covers the switches, the pick and rolls. He knows when to rotate. He can guard guards because he has quite nimble feet, and he's quite long. He's got a lot of length, so he's a good matchup. He's a good defender as well. So as I said earlier, I think the Pelicans will fall off short of the playoffs, but they've got quite an exciting team and a good future. So hopefully they can make some more moves in the postseason, and they'll come back next year.
Cool. Okay. So from the Pelicans to the Utah Jazz. Boasting a 64% win record, last year's underwhelming postseason package, the Utah Jazz are already qualified for the playoff, and they're looking to better their first-round exit in the playoffs last year. In their first seeding game back after the break, Utah overcame a shaky start against the Pelicans to win in, let's say, not the most convincing fashion. Rudy Gobert, who was blamed by his co-star Donovan Mitchell to have given him coronavirus, despite this not being able to be proved, might I add, is up for a Supermax extension at the end of this season. It'll be interesting to see what the Utah Jazz do, but the general consensus is that probably won't happen. And it'll be interesting to see his relationship with Donovan Mitchell and see how that grows or diminishes following his statements as well. I've recently had to revise my opinion on their playoff chances after watching more of their regular season pre-lockdown games. They leave a lot to be desired on the offensive end without Bogdanovic. And with the more sporadic performances of Donovan Mitchell than that of his rookie year, and Rudy Gobert struggling to emulate his 2018 and 2019 defensive prowess, let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if they have another first-round exit, but they for sure are not making it past the Clippers or the Lakers in the semis.
Cool. I've got the Portland Trailblazers, 30-37 for the year. They're ranked 9th in the Western Conference. One end, they've got the 27th ranked defense in the league, which means they're keeping company with teams like the Hawks, Cavs, and Wizards. They're even below Obi's Knicks and Knee's Golden State Warriors. But on the other end, they've got the 9th ranked offense in the league, so they're going to get buckets. And there are two things that you can be guaranteed from Portland. They're going to give you heart, and they're going to give you buckets. Two things that they've lacked this year are defense and wins. So obviously, at the head of the tree is their emotional and spiritual leader, Dame Lillard, perennial all-star Dame Lillard. He's having a very good season once again, doing what he does. He's backed up by his backcourt teammate, C.J. McCollum, one of the best scoring bags in the league, I think, in terms of all the variety of ways that he's able to score. They've also got the ghost of Carmelo Anthony, who is here for a swan song of sorts, but has actually been pretty good since he's returned. And then they've got a returning Yusuf Nurkic. After getting to the Western Conference Finals last season, albeit some may say a bit luckily over Denver, I think people were expecting a lot more from them. They're 3.5 games back from the Grizzlies, but they beat them the other night. So they've got 6-7 games to try and make the playoffs, but they're going to be playing the Lakers regardless. So I think they'll go out there. But you know what? I wouldn't rule them out just because of that heart I mentioned. And they've got Dame Lillard, and we know what happens when it's Lillard time.
Bring back Melo. That's what I'm saying. Bring him back. I want him back.
Yeah, I mean, Portland Trailblazers got it overtime win. against the Grizzlies, who I'm finishing up on, Memphis Grizzlies, the other night, and we'll touch on that in a little bit about why that makes things particularly interesting in the West.
Fantastic game, by the way.
Really good game. Really good game. Again, like if anyone wants to go check highlights of get up to speed with some of the best games, I'd say that is one. Memphis Grizzlies, for me, they're not going to do a whole amount this year, but they've been one of the more interesting teams for me just to see about what they're promising for the future. As a Celtics fan, I'm kind of fuming because for the last 2 years, we've had picks for the draft from teams that everyone had tipped to finish about bottom 5, bottom 6, and they've both been the most like surprising teams in the West both times. So great for us, unlucky. But Memphis are in the 8th seed of the playoffs as it stands. They're a really interesting side in terms of the young talent they've got. They're a very, very young team. They've got Jaren Jackson Jr., who is a really interesting player in terms of his size, in terms of his ability to shoot the three. Once he fills out, gets a bit more physically dominant, he could be really, really, really difficult to play up against. They've got a few good other young talents there. You've got Brandon Clark, who just seems an amazing all-round player, really, really clever in his rookie season in how to play all sorts of basketball. There's a few others. Dylan Brooks is being a good role player this year as well, but the one who really deserves all of the attention, the adulation, is, with Zion's injuries, for me, the undoubted rookie of the year in Ja Morant, second pick of the draft this year, who has just exploded onto the scene in the league. He's all dunks, shots, stops, and flying limbs. He is a really, really talented guard. Doesn't have any fear, it seems like, and even
Jump out the gym, man.
Jump out the gym, and even in the Trailblazers game where he didn't shoot well at all, there was still like a moment in the second half where they were down about 7. And for just 3 consecutive possessions, he went and got a bucket and had them up at the end of about a minute and a half worth of clock time. He's a real live wire, really talented player, one of the best to watch this year. Even his highlights package, just for casual listeners, is worth a watch.
It's phenomenal.
And yeah, the Grizzlies are looking like a really interesting project moving forward. If they do get in the playoffs, they'll be the 8th seed and likely go out to the Lakers, but definitely one to watch for a young team promising a lot. That does take us to sort of this whole situation with the bubble and more teams being invited than just the playoff side. For the first time, the NBA are introducing a potential play-in tournament. So it was mentioned that the Portland Trailblazers, after their win against the Grizzlies the other night, are 2.5 games off the 8th seed in 9th. San Antonio Spurs, after their win against the Kings, and interestingly playing the Grizzlies next, are 3.5 games off the 8th seed. Now, how this is going to work is any team that are within 4.5 games off of the 8th seed will be entered into a play-in tournament to potentially, almost like a pre-playoffs, a mini playoffs, to potentially snag the 8th seed off the team currently sitting there.
Cool.
If no team is within 4
How will it
games,
work then? So with the team in 8th also playing the competition, or
yeah. So if there's no one within the four games of the 8th seed, they automatically qualify. That's no problem. Otherwise, the 8th and the 9th seeds play in a double elimination tournament. The better the record, the more advantage you have.
Adam Silver doesn't cease to impress me. I thought it was impressive the way he did the All-Star game. It made it actually competitive for once.
Yeah.
But hearing this, and obviously the fact that there's less seeding games available this year, and then doing something like that, it's genius.
So and how they've tried to fix it is they still want to keep it interesting, but they still want to reward the 8th seed. So if you have earned that 8th seed over the season, you only have to win 1 game in this play-in tournament to keep your seed. The 9th seed has to beat the 8th seed twice to get that 8th place.
So it's a best of 3, yeah? Oh, no, it's a best of... Was it, so how many games? Sorry, they're playing 2 games, right?
It depends. They could play... If the 8th seed wins
the first game, that's it. Obviously, if the 9th seed wins the first one, they then play double elimination. That's sick. That is sick. So what happens if the Spurs and the Trailblazers are both within 4 games of the Grizzlies?
Good question, right?
You tell me, son.
That is so funny. You know what that reminds me of? You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of you remember when you remember when Jeff Stelling asked Chris Camera if the player got sent off?
Oh, yeah.
Has there been, Jeff? Is there? So what I assume happened is they were expecting a bit more competitive in the East. So they would have included as sort of fought across the NBA.
Okay.
It's not going to happen in the East. So as far as I'm aware, it's just 8th v 9th. But we will potentially have to edit this pod before it goes out after a little Google. Because
I think it's, I mean, this is, we keep it real, man. We don't know at this time. And the next pod will update you further to the news. I think it's interesting, though. And I think it's also, it's an incentive for those teams, isn't it? To, like, don't just come and make up the numbers. Like, I think Dame said, like, listen, if there's a chance of me making the playoffs, I'll come to the bubble. But if you lot are just asking me to come so you can have a round number of teams so everybody can play 8 games, but I'm not making the playoffs, then I'm not going to risk my health for it. And I completely agree. With him. So it makes perfect sense. Obviously, it should be a one-time thing. But yeah, man, it looks like the Grizzlies and the Trailblazers will probably have to play each other again. I don't see them getting too far ahead of the Trailblazers, man. Dame, obviously, you know what he's about. Man on a mission.
Cool.
So I guess that rounds up our first podcast. I'm going to thank you listeners in advance for listening. Then I'm going to thank you guys for coming through. Hot Take Harold, Nee, Ovi, and obviously Yas as well. Stay tuned. There's so much things to cover in the NBA. Even as we're doing this pod, our ideas are coming into our mind, and I've posted a couple of thoughts in the group chat. So yeah, we'll just go from there. So listen, subscribe to the YouTube channel, join the Discord. Probably for the playoffs, probably something around us maybe doing live like we did for the football.
Yeah.
We can do lives for the playoffs as well. So
Sounds good, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for listening and peace, man.
Peace.
Peace.
Nice one, boys.